It's the combination of being both very contagious and sufficiently dangerous that makes this pandemic really problematic. Now, I would love to put up my hand and say, I saw this coming, I warned the world. It's not true. I was on the whole fairly dismissive of the pandemic threat because I'd seen people overreact to the threat of SARS, the threat of swine flu, the threat of bird flu, the threat of Ebola, which we didn't overreact to, but we were wrong to think that Ebola was going to run wild through the world as opposed to remain a localized infection because it's not sufficiently contagious. So again and again, I kept saying the only viruses that are going to really run riot through the world, the very contagious ones, are going to be very low virulence because that's what we tend to experience. The common cold is caused by up to 200 different kinds of virus. None of them want you dead. They all want you well enough to go out to a party and give it to someone else. If you see, that's their method of survival. So I didn't see this coming, but I did say in a book I published in 1999, if we are going to experience a bad pandemic in the 21st century, it's going to come from bats, and it's going to be a virus, not a bacterium. And the reason I said that was because of the Ebola story and because of a couple of other viruses, one called Nipah and one called Hendra in Australia and Nipah in India, which had killed people after infection from bats. And what's funny about bats? Well, we then got SARS from bats. We got MERS from bats, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, which was spread bats via camels in 2012. And now we've got this one. What's odd about bats? Well, like us, they're mammals. So they're relatively closely related to us compared with other creatures, relatively similar biochemically, if you like. But more importantly, they live in really big groups. They're very gregarious. Most other mammals don't do that. Bat roosts can number in the millions. There's a cave in Texas with 20 million bats in it at certain times of the year. That's like Mexico City in terms of how many people it's got in it. And so a respiratory virus is not going to thrive in a species that only meets other members of its species twice a year, like a tiger or a panda or something like that. It's only going to thrive in highly gregarious species.
Oh, that had never dawned on me. I thought that bats were uniquely dirty, but that's right. So bats and rats, which do live in giant, or at least they come in contact with one another. So the more social the animal,
better than rats because bats fly, and so bats go long distances, and they don't just meet their neighbors; they meet strangers too, as it were.
Oh, this is totally new. I had not heard that or thought of it. It just seemed like, bats are the ones that are the bad ones. They're like mosquitoes or something.
There's also a theory that they've got a weird immune system, and that viruses adapted to their immune system therefore run riot in ours because ours is so different. They have 24 genes for interferon alpha, which is a particular antiviral chemical. We only have one such gene. But on the other hand, they seem to produce very few B cells because B cells are produced from bone marrow, and their bones are mostly hollow to make them light for flight. So there's sort of weird differences there too, which might explain some of the differences.